Now let's talk about the general workflows of color grading. Now that we have a basic idea of what color grading is, let's take a look at just kind of the general workflows of kind of when and how it happens. So in the general workflow of post-production, things generally kind of go in basically this order. First of all, you prep all your media, make sure everything's organized, and then you start your edit. After that, you generally will take the shots that are going to go for visual effects, any kind of fancy graphics, things that are needed like that. And once the VFX are done, that's generally when it will go to color and or mix. Color is color grading like we've talked about. Mix is like audio mixing. And you get the final images from color and the final audio from mix, and you put them together in your kind of final edit. And after that, you render. So color kind of happens right here. You generally want to have everything pretty much done before you get into color. Now, this isn't necessarily always true. This isn't really as essential as it used to be, because as we'll take a look at in Resolve, you can kind of go back and forth in between these things to a point, but it's generally a good idea to have everything pretty much visually locked in before you get into color grading. A movie can be broken up into several kind of different parts. When we're talking about color, we're talking about adjusting every single shot in a movie. That means making sure that the exposure and the white balance and all the corrections and the feelings and everything that we talked about in the first lesson here is exactly how we want it for every single shot in the movie, which for some shows might be 1,000, 2,000 shots. And if that sounds tedious, well, it's because it can be. If you were to go through each shot and do it from scratch and do all the adjustments to this shot and then go to the next shot and do all the adjustments there and then to the next shot and all the adjustments there, it would take a really long time. But generally how we'll do it is kind of start at the macro level, the biggest grouping of things that we can get. What we'll often try and do is make a lot of our corrections and especially our kind of stylistic decisions for the whole timeline. So we can actually make a correction that affects every single thing in our edit all at once, and then kind of drill it down from there. Like in scene 1, maybe everything's really bright and we have to take everything in scene 1 down a little bit. Maybe scene 2, things are cast a little bit blue and everything needs to be a little bit warmer. But we can kind of group these shots together and make big adjustments all together to really save time. So if you do your job, making sure the adjustments for the timeline and the scene level are really good, you actually won't have to do a whole lot for every single shot. This is going to make more sense as we get into the specifics and especially working through our individual grading projects. But I think it's really good to kind of understand this from the very beginning, that even though we are adjusting every single shot, we can do a lot of the work as a big group, so we don't have to redo the same work over and over. So that's the kind of basics of the color grading workflow. Next, we'll get into kind of the ideal color grading setup.